All right, it's Trevor here with another update for the Edmonton real estate market, looking at the most recent statistics available from the Realtors Association of Edmonton. This is basically taking the month-end statistics from April. We're a few days into May now, and I've got my infographics all ready to go for you. So I'm gonna try to actually look at the whole market, single-family homes and then condos in one video instead of three separate videos this time. I already did another update using some of the same stats, but I can show a lot more with these infographics than what I showed you in my last video. So let's jump right into it. Definitely seeing a shift in the market in Edmonton that was a bit unexpected compared to March. First off, we'll start with the total residential here. So this is looking at the market as a whole. So it's including both single family homes, half duplexes, condos, townhouses. It's all kind of mushed together. And right now, the market as a whole is a balanced market with an absorption rate of 41.6%. And this over here is the 13-month history, so you can see how it's shifted over the last 13 months. And you can see that that's a pretty big drop from where we were at last month. So last month, we were sitting at about a 70% absorption rate, so the whole market was actually a seller's market last month. And now we dropped back down into a balanced market, right smack dab in the middle of the balanced market. So that's an interesting quick shift, especially going from March to April. I was expecting the sales volume to go up in April and for things to get a lot hotter. Don't get me wrong, the market's still hot, and it was hot in April, but it definitely shifted. It wasn't quite as crazy as it was in February or March. Now, the average price for the whole market was $412, $412, I wish, $412,097, which is just up a little bit from last month, up 0.54% from March and up 5.91% from April last year. Now, if you look at the 13-month history, you can see that we had a big gain in February of almost 9.4%. Then we were technically down a little bit in March, and now we're just up 0.5% for the market as a whole. And if you compare that to what was going on last year, in April, we were down a little bit from where we were at in March 2021, but then we had another gain in May. From there, the average price sort of dropped a little bit, and we had a bit of a gain in November, and it wasn't until February where we started seeing another gain. Now this average price, it is a little bit all over the place because it depends what's selling. The benchmark price is a little bit better metric to look at. Now, if we're just looking at for the whole year, so far we're up 5.51% for the year, and last year we were up 6.25%. So depending on what happens for the rest of the year, we may be up more or down. Now, looking at the number of active and sold listings, this is where things get interesting, and this shows you how the market balance shifted a lot in the last month. So at the end of April, we had 5,091 active listings, which is up 50% from March 2022. So we had a big increase in our total inventory throughout April, but we're still down a little bit from where we were at last April, in April 2021. So even though there's been a big shift in the amount of inventory, we still don't have as much inventory as we did last year. And the number of sales, this is also interesting. So we had 2,118 sales, which is down 11.16% from March 2022. It is still up from last April though, so it's up 9.85% from last April. What just makes it seem like such a stark contrast is that we had really big months in February and especially in March. And seeing a decrease going from March to April is a little bit weird as you get further into the spring real estate market, which definitely makes it look like it's the interest rates that are having an effect on the buyer demand. So this 13-month history, again, over here on the right, you can see the bar on the bottom, the number indicates how many sales there were. So even though we're sitting at 2,118 sales, that's still up from last year, but the balance of the market has shifted a lot in this last month, because in March we had 2,384 sales and only almost 3,400 listings. And now our sales volume dropped while our inventory actually increased. So that really changes how the market feels. And if that continues, we could actually shift further into potentially, a buyer's market in some categories. It's already sort of there still for condos, but not for single family homes. We'll get into that next. But the average days on market for the whole market was 31 days, which is down So it's still faster than last month, 11.43% faster than last month, and 20.5% faster compared to last year. So we're sitting at 31 days in April. We were at 35 days in March. Last April, we were at 39 days. So the number of days on market still decreased in April, even though we had less sales and more inventory. Now the market distribution, this just shows you the price point of different, what percentage of the market is selling in different price points. We had about 15% of the market under 200,000, another 15 between 2 and 300,000, 24% between 3 and 400,000, and about 20% between 4 and 500,000. Once you get over 5 to 6, you're sitting just south of 12% of the market, and then going down from there in each increment. So that's sort of the market as a whole for single family homes. Now I'm gonna jump into that's the market as a whole for Edmonton. Now I'm gonna jump into single family homes. But before I do that, I just wanna remind you that this can give you a great sort of overview, overall general view of what's going on in the market. But if you'd like to get more specific advice based on your situation, whether you're looking at buying or selling, the price point, the areas, what your needs are, that kind of thing, I can give you a lot more specific advice if you reach out to me directly. And you can reach me at 780-819-5508. You can either text me or call me, or email me at trevor@trevortardif.com, or go to booktrevornow.com, select the time on my calendar, and then I will call you. There's absolutely no obligation to my free consultations. We'll just hop on a call, and I'll help you any way I can probably at least get some of your questions answered and help at least point you in the right direction. Okay, so let's look at single family homes now. So single family homes, we're still in a seller's market with an absorption rate of 52.56%. And we had 2,169 listings at the end of the month and 1,140 sales in April. So again, we see a big shift here. If we look at the last 13 months, last April, we were sitting at a 43% absorption rate, which was still technically a balanced market. It never quite pushed into that seller's market territory last year, even though it certainly felt like it in certain price points and neighborhoods. Then it dropped later into the year, and things started to pick up in January, and we had a pretty crazy February that was, well into seller's market territory with a 74% absorption rate. And then March, we had an 88% absorption rate, so it was a very strong seller's market. And now we've dropped down to a 52% absorption rate, which is still technically a seller's market, but you can see how we went from like redlining seller's market to almost going back into a balanced market. Now, again, this is just the whole Edmonton single family home market. This is not the case in every neighborhood and every price point. Some areas are definitely still very strong seller's market. There's not very much inventory, and you're usually having multiple offers. It's just a big shift from how hot it was to, once you get more inventory and don't have as many sales, it makes a big difference. Now, if we look at the sales price, the average price was sitting at $520,017 for April, which is up 2.3% from last month and up 10.57% from last April. So again, you can see here in the market, we had big gains in February. We were up 11.26%, and then we were up 1.28% last month, and now we're up another 2.3%. So we haven't returned to the massive gains that we saw in February, but the market has still been creeping up, and those are some pretty good gains. If you got that every month, you would end up with over 20% price increase for the year. So interesting piece of information. If the market continues to shift though, I'm not sure if I would keep projecting prices to go up. Like the price acceleration has really slowed down, and I'm surprised how quickly the market shifted from a super strong seller's market into a weaker seller's market, essentially, for single family homes. I know in some other markets like Toronto, they've actually seen their prices drop already, and that was after their sales volume dropped significantly in terms of the number of sales, and their inventory also increased. Our market has never been nearly as hot as Toronto or Vancouver, but seeing what's going on in their markets after just a couple months of these interest rate hikes, it does appear to be having a bigger impact there and potentially even in our market than I would have expected. The fixed rates have gone up a lot just in like a 6-week period, so that I think is really starting to hurt the demand. And time will tell. We'll just have to see what happens as we get further into the spring market, what happens in May. If we see something similar again in May, where sales volume has dropped again and we have even more inventory, then we're shifting the balance of the market even further. And if that happened and we pushed ourselves into a more of a balanced market, then I think we would essentially start to see prices like truly flatten and not continue to go up. So if we just look at the average price so far for 2022, single families are up 7.37%, which is already up more than what we saw in 2021 when we were up 7.09%. So it's a good gain so far for the year. And now this will illustrate how the balance of the market has shifted again. So we had 2,169 active listings at the end of the month and 1,140 sales. The number of active listings again is up 46% from last month, but still down from last year. It's down 19%. And the number of sold properties is down 13.18% from March and actually down a little bit from last April as well. These are still like strong numbers. It's still a robust market in terms of how many sales have happened. Yeah, we're down a little bit from where we were last April, but since we had a little bit less inventory than we did last April, it's a pretty similar sort of balance to what it was last April. But if you compare that to March, where we had a lot less inventory and an absorption rate, in the 88%, that's a pretty big shift in the market, essentially. So we'll have to see what happens with that moving forward. Average days on market for single family homes was 23 days, which is, again, a little bit faster than last month. It was 27 days in March and 41 days in February, even though that was a huge month. It's a bit of a lagging statistic, and it depends. If you have a bunch of properties that were just sitting for a long time over the winter, those could have affected some of the February numbers as well. But that's what's going on for the average days on market. Now, if we just look at the price distribution for single family homes, barely any of the markets under that $200,000 mark, about 7% between $200,000 and $300,000, 23% of the market between $300,000 and $400,000, 27.5% between $400,000 and $500,000, and just under 19% between $500,000 and $600,000. Between $600,000 and $700,000, you've got 10.74%, and then about 5% of the market between $700,000 and $800,000, and then after that, it just goes down from there. Okay, so now we're going to look at condos next, but again, just want to remind you, I can give you more specific advice if you reach out to me directly at 780-819-5508. Either text me or call me, email me at trevor@trevortardif.com, or go to booktrevornow.com to select a time on my calendar, and then I will call you. So let's take a look at condominiums now. So there's also been a bit of a shift in this market. It's still in a balanced market for condos, but just right in the middle between a balanced market and a buyer's market. Definitely some parts of the condo market I would still consider more of a buyer's market, which would be apartment condos for the most part. The hottest part of the condo market is the townhouse condos. That doesn't get displayed in the stats here, but that's just based on what I actually see in the market on a daily basis. So we're sitting at a 32.57% listing absorption rate, which is still way better than what we had all last year, but it did drop a little bit in March. We really started to see the condo market improving in February, and then March things were starting to look up, and we were starting to wonder, are we going to actually start selling all these condos and stop having our prices drop for condos, and that's how things were starting to look in March. But now it's pulled back a little bit in April, so it has shifted again. The average price for condos was sitting at $232,295, which is down 3.72% from March and up 4.53% from April last year. You can see this kind of bumps up and down quite a bit. Again, it depends on if you've got more expensive condos selling or if you've got a bunch of cheap one-bedroom condos selling, so it's a little bit more finicky there. And so far we're up 4.33% for the year. Last year we were up just over 3%, and that was after several losses for several years. Now, if we look at the balance of active and solds, we had 2,045 listings at the end of April and 666 sales. So our active listings were up 7.18% from March, but still down 26.2% from last April. And our sales were down from March, just over 7%, but still up 31% from April last year. So still a big improvement from where we were at last year for condos, but we have seen a slight downtick. We haven't seen the same increase in inventory in condos in April as what we saw in the single family home market. You're not seeing as much of a swing here. It's still a pretty good month for condos, especially if you just compare that to what we had all last year. That's still more than what we sold last April, May, June. It's still elevated compared to what we've essentially been seeing lately. Average days on market was sitting at 46 days compared to 51 days last month, which is still performing better than it had all of last year. And then you can see it's a much different picture with the price distribution, with condos under 200,000 making up 45% of the market, and condos between 200,000 and 300,000 representing about 34%. And then you're sitting at about 15% of the market between 300,000 and 400,000. After that, once you get over $400,000, you got yourself a fancy condo, because that's only about 3% of the market, and it just goes down from there. Yeah, so that pretty much wraps it up for the infographics here. I'll put a link in the description so you can actually download all these reports, so you can take a look at those a little bit closer if you'd like. Hope this was useful for you guys. If you like this, make sure to like and subscribe. If you click over here, you can subscribe to my channel, and if you click over here, you can check out more videos about the Edmonton real estate market. Thanks so much for watching.